There's a moment most men know well. You're talking to someone who genuinely interests you. She seems amazing, but something is off. The interest just isn't there on her side. So you try harder, you're kinder, more attentive, more available, and somehow the more effort you put in, the more distance you feel growing between you. Here's what nobody ever told you about that experience. You're probably not doing the wrong things. You're doing the right things in the wrong sequence, and that distinction changes everything. Attraction doesn't follow logic. It doesn't respond to effort, the way effort usually works in the rest of life. You cannot reason your way into someone's feelings. You cannot earn desire through consistency alone, because attraction lives in a completely different part of the brain than the part that evaluates kindness, reliability, and effort. And until you understand how that part works, you'll keep getting the same confusing results no matter how good your intentions are. Today, we're going to change that. 7 psychological principles that actually create genuine attraction rooted in real science, explained clearly, and most importantly, grounded in respect. Because none of this works. None of it is worth anything if it isn't built on genuine integrity. Let's start with the foundation. Everything else builds on this. The first principle is presence. Not physical appearance, not confidence performed for an audience. Actual, grounded, centered presence. The quality of being fully in yourself, unhurried, unafraid of other people's opinions, genuinely at ease in your own skin. Women pick this up within seconds of meeting someone. Not consciously, the brain processes these signals automatically long before any deliberate evaluation happens. A man who moves calmly, who doesn't scan the room for approval, who occupies his space without apology, communicates something through his energy alone that words could never fully replicate. He communicates that he knows who he is, that his sense of self doesn't depend on how this interaction goes. In practice, this looks simple. At a social event, instead of mentally rehearsing what to say, instead of monitoring how you're coming across, you simply relax. Shoulders back, breathing slow. Genuine curiosity about the people around you rather than anxiety about their judgment. That shift from performance to presence changes the entire signal you broadcast, and the response you receive changes with it. The second principle is emotional polarity. Here is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in attraction. Most men, when they're interested in someone, agree with almost everything she says. They avoid any friction, any disagreement, anything that might create conflict, because they believe agreement creates connection. It does, eventually. But before connection, there needs to be spark. And spark requires contrast. It requires 2 distinct perspectives actually meeting rather than one person mirroring the other continuously. When you express a genuine opinion that differs from hers, not argumentatively, not aggressively, but playfully and with warmth, you create polarity. You demonstrate that you have your own center, that you're not adjusting yourself to match what you think she wants. That conversation with you will be genuinely interesting because you actually bring something distinct to it. She says she loves waking up early. Instead of immediately agreeing, you smile and say you look like you've had a complicated relationship with your alarm clock. It's light, it's warm, it's not mean, but it's real. And real is rare. Most people she talks to are performing. You're just being yourself. That contrast creates genuine interest. The third principle is selective attention. This is where many well-intentioned men lose ground without understanding why. When you become immediately and completely available, instant replies, canceled plans, constant attention, your entire schedule reorganized around her. You're not communicating devotion. You're communicating that you had nothing happening before she appeared. And the person who had nothing happening before you arrived, who suddenly restructures their entire life around your attention, doesn't feel like someone who chose you. They feel like someone who needed you. And need as a foundation for connection creates anxiety rather than desire. A man with genuine direction, with goals he's working toward, friendships he maintains, interests that genuinely absorb him, has a full life. His attention, when it lands on you, means something precisely because it isn't available to everyone at all times. He chose to be here. That choice feels real because there were other options. This isn't a game of artificial unavailability. It's the natural result of actually having a life you're invested in. Build that life genuinely, and selective attention becomes authentic rather than manufactured. The fourth principle is intentional listening, not hearing, listening. There is a profound difference, and most people feel it immediately, even if they can't articulate what created it. When you recall something she mentioned casually, weeks later, in a completely different context, and you bring it up naturally, something shifts. She realizes you weren't just waiting for your turn to speak. You were actually present. You were actually absorbing what she shared. You found it worth remembering. She mentioned once that she loves a particular type of flower. Days later, you send a photo of one you passed on your walk with a simple message. This reminded me of something you said. That's not a grand gesture. It cost nothing. But what it communicates is worth more than most grand gestures ever could. It says, I was paying attention when you didn't think anyone was. You matter enough to remember. Emotional connection grows from being genuinely seen. And being genuinely seen is one of the rarest experiences most people have. When you offer it consistently, without agenda, the response is almost always the same. She wants more of that feeling. And you're the one who creates it. The fifth principle is grounded vulnerability. There's a belief many men carry that they need to appear invulnerable, that showing any weakness, any uncertainty, any real emotion will reduce how she sees them. And this belief costs more in genuine connection than almost anything else. Women don't connect with perfection. They connect with humanity, with the real, unedited, genuinely inhabited version of a person rather than the polished presentation. When you share something real, a challenge you faced, a fear that still visits you, something that didn't go the way you hoped, without making it a performance of suffering, without needing her to rescue you from it, you become someone she can actually know. Vulnerability combined with stability is one of the most powerful combinations in human connection. It says, I am secure enough in myself to let you see what's actually here. I don't need to hide my humanity to feel worthy of your attention. That combination, openness and groundedness together, builds trust faster than any performance of strength ever could. And trust is the foundation that genuine desire is built on. The sixth principle is conscious physical connection. Research in attachment and bonding consistently shows that appropriate, respectful physical touch is one of the most powerful accelerators of emotional connection between people. A brief, light touch on the arm during genuine laughter, a gentle brush of the shoulder while walking side by side, nothing forced, nothing rushed, nothing that crosses any boundary. What these small moments do neurochemically is significant. Each appropriate touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone in both people. Her brain begins associating your physical presence with warmth, safety, and comfort. The connection that builds through this is not manufactured. It's biological. Her nervous system is responding to genuine positive experience. The key word throughout is appropriate. This works because it is respectful and it is responsive to her comfort. The moment it becomes about your agenda rather than genuine connection, it loses everything that made it meaningful. The seventh principle is the most powerful one, and almost nobody uses it correctly. Calibrated unpredictability. The human brain is wired to find genuine mystery compelling. This is the neurochemistry of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical releases, not just when we receive something good, but when we anticipate something uncertain. Predictable reward creates satisfaction. Uncertain reward creates fascination. A man who is entirely predictable, who always responds the same way, always initiates, always behaves exactly as expected, creates comfort, but not the kind of magnetic pull that makes someone think about him when he's not in the room. But here's the important distinction. This is not about being inconsistent in ways that create anxiety. It's not about hot and cold behavior designed to confuse. It's about being genuinely multidimensional. Warm in one moment, intellectually challenging in another. Initiating sometimes, creating space at other times. Playful in one conversation, deeply serious in the next. Real people are complex. When you allow your genuine complexity to show, when you don't flatten yourself into a single consistent performance, you become someone she can't fully predict. And someone she can't fully predict is someone she keeps thinking about, trying to understand, wanting more time with, to see what else is there. The mystery that keeps someone's attention is never manufactured. It's the natural result of being a genuinely multidimensional person who doesn't reveal everything at once. Now let's step back and look at what all 7 of these have in common. Because the pattern here is important. Every single principle we've covered is not a technique applied from the outside. It's an expression of something internal. Presence comes from genuine self-knowledge. Polarity comes from having real opinions. Selective attention comes from actually having a full life. Intentional listening comes from genuine curiosity about other people. Grounded vulnerability comes from real self-acceptance. Conscious touch comes from authentic warmth. Calibrated unpredictability comes from being genuinely complex. None of these can be sustainably faked. They can be temporarily performed, but performance is exactly what the woman's social radar is scanning for and finding. The only way to embody these principles consistently and authentically is to actually work on becoming the person they describe. A man who is genuinely present, genuinely curious, genuinely invested in his own growth and direction, genuinely comfortable in his own humanity, that man doesn't need to chase. He doesn't need to manufacture attraction. He simply shows up as himself, clearly and without apology, and the people who are right for him are drawn toward that naturally. That is not a strategy. That is integrity expressing itself as magnetism. And it starts not with what you do in the next conversation, it starts with what you build in yourself before you get there. If this gave you a new way of seeing attraction and what actually creates it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Magda K Inspires, because every week we go deeper into the real psychology of connection, confidence, and becoming someone whose presence genuinely matters.